Good evening, members. Councillor Nigel.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Councillor Nigel Smith and I am the Chair of the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I can confirm that the committee officers have conducted a sound check before the start of the meeting, so I presume that everybody can hear me loud and clear. Can I welcome everybody here to today's meeting where we are all attending remotely. In addition to committee members, we also have non-committee members, cabinet members and officers joining us to assist us with our discussions. For those viewing the live stream or recording, committee members are identified by an asterisk next to their name. The meeting will be recorded and the live stream will be available for all viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue to record and will be available through the council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that the translation facilities are available and to choose your language of choice. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You can also use the chat facility. All microphones will be muted. If you have indicated your intention to speak, you will be invited to turn on your microphone. If you leave your device for any reason during the meeting, can I please ask that you ensure that you are muted and that you've turned off your video. We'll now move on to the agenda items. The first item is apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillors David Johnson, Abdul Khan and Bob Squire.
Thank you, Jane. Item 2 is declarations of interest, code of local government conduct. Are there any, Councillor Geoffrey Corrie?
The normal one is page 35, forward work programme, to consider a report for the disposal of tier prints. If I could have the appropriate paperwork, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
I'm not sure that's gone through cabinet already. I think it has, Jane.
Well, it's on. No, it's on tonight on that forward work programme.
All right. We'll make sure you get the paper.
I've got no choice, Nigel.
Okay. No problem, Geoffrey.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
We'll now move on to item 3, which is urgent matters.
There are no urgent matters, Chair.
Good. Thank you, Jane. So item 4 is the minutes, to approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of January this year on pages 4 to 12. I presume that our members have read the minutes. Do we have a proposer and seconder? If you're happy with them. Councillor Geoffrey to propose and Councillor Keith Eales to second. Is everybody happy with the minutes? If you are, could you please show by raising your hands? Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 5, which is to receive and note the minutes of the special local area forum central held on the 13th of January this year. And these are to be presented by Councillor Brian Cossey. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Chair. Yes, good to see you all. Yeah, I'm here to present to you the minutes of the local area forum central meeting held on the 13th of January for information.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a proposer for the minutes? A proposer and second have also been confirmed. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 6, which is a review of the forward work programme for the Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the combined forward work programme, and these will be presented by Dawn Hughes, our Scrutiny Committee Services Officer, and they're on page 16 to 64. Thank you, Dawn.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I haven't really got much to update members on, just to remind you that we have got a special meeting on the 2nd of March, and that is in order to consider the site allocations for affordable housing. As you notice on the agenda today is the Affordable Housing Programme Board. So following this report, there'll be another report from asking members to consider some site allocations. And that's my update, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Dawn. So if members are happy with the forward work programmes, could you please, could I have a proposer and seconder? Sorry. Proposer, Councillor Joan Vaughan, and seconded by Councillor Phil Capper. If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Yeah, I think that's pretty much unanimous. Thank you very much, members. So we'll now move on to item 7, which is questions to cabinet members. I'm not aware of any.
There are no questions, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. Item 8 then, which is the Affordable Housing Programme Board approval. This will be presented by Jodie Davis. Good evening, Jodie.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this report has been written and is being presented today to ask members to consider and approve the establishment of the Affordable Housing Programme and structure. So the aim of the programme is to support the acceleration of the supply of affordable housing using council-owned assets. This will be achieved by coordinating the affordable housing projects and tasks, providing support to break down barriers to bringing developments forward, and providing oversight. As membership will include officers who play a key role in bringing council-owned sites forward for affordable housing, the establishment of the programme will help to streamline the process and will avoid duplication of work and minimise delays. It's necessary to increase the supply of affordable housing at pace as the demand is increasing at an alarming rate. On average, each year the housing register demand increases by 60 applicants. However, demand in the last 12 months has increased by 262 applicants. This is due to a number of external factors such as changes in household income and the cost of living, and changes in Welsh Government policy such as the removal of priority need. This increase in demand has resulted in a high number of households in temporary accommodation. At the time of this report was written, this figure stood at 279 households, 145 of which were in emergency accommodation. This can not only have a detrimental impact on the household's health and well-being, it can also have a significant impact on the homeless budget. This year, the budget is projected to be overcommitted by approximately 800,000. It has been identified that it would be beneficial to appoint a preferred RSL development partner. We are currently developing a process to do this, and this process will be presented at Cabinet for approval. But for today's report, the recommendation is to approve the establishment of the Affordable Housing Programme and structure, and for the committee to nominate a representative to sit on the programme board. Thank you.
Well, thank you for presenting the report, Jodie. I will open it up to the floor if there's anybody wishes to comment on the report. Members? No? No comment. Oh, Councillor Chris Hughes. Sorry, yes.
Thanks, Chair. I was just concerned that these programme boards that we're setting up, there's only ever one member of scrutiny on it, on these boards, and that does concern me because we're not getting any political balance on them. It's in the main, the people who are appointed have particular views, and the whole point of scrutiny is to have a range of political views so that you can those can be presented or put forward in order to ensure that the debates that are had are that we're fully exploring all options. And when these meetings only have one representative of scrutiny on them, that's not possible, because in most of the cases the work that I've looked at over the last few weeks, certainly over the last few months, almost all the appointments to working groups actually come from the parties that make up the coalition in charge, which doesn't afford appropriate scrutiny.
Well, you might say that, Christopher. From my short time as a councillor, 10 years, I think it's always been the same process. But I'll bring in Jane Richardson.
More than one. If you look at working groups and programme boards over the years, there's always been more than one. When I was cabinet member and we set up the regeneration board in Abergele, for example, they wanted three, and officers wanted 3 members, and I said, no, we're not going to exclude the other 2, and we had 5.
Okay. Jane, would you wish to come in?
Thank you, Chair. And for those watching, I'm Jane Richardson, the Strategic Director for Economy and Place can I first of all thank Jodie for stepping in at very, very short notice to present this report, because our colleague Sam Parry was taken unwell today. Thank you for the question, Chris. The reason we have one scrutiny member is because that is what is laid out in our project and programme management framework. We have a very mature framework which has been, through democracy, approved by members. It's a standard process that we apply to every single project and programme taken throughout the council to make sure we get a consistency of approach. We've been doing it that way for many years, delivered many successful projects through that, won awards for our project management approach for things like Quid, Petla, etc. These programme boards don't make any decisions. They help shape the work. They help give guidance to the Office of Project teams who are developing the pieces of work. The decisions are then made by members with the proposals coming through to scrutiny and then to cabinet. In this instance, the programme board is going to be bringing a report to this scrutiny group in the first week of March with some early suggestions of how we might progress this piece of work. So all scrutiny members will get to feed in then as to how they think it should or shouldn't progress before it goes on to cabinet for decision. And in terms of the appropriateness of who is chosen, that's down to you members, because you choose the representative in each case. So hopefully that gives some reassurance.
With respect, Chair, we have, 20 minutes to discuss something at a scrutiny committee, and that is no way sufficient for us to debate something like that. I mean, the working group still hasn't met, and we did say the last time the working group met at the back end of last year, we said it would meet early in this year. We're into the almost at the end of the second month. We've got a few more weeks before we go into the purdah period. The working group hasn't met, so that's not going to get the opportunity to discuss it. And I'm sorry, Jane, I don't think it's very I just don't feel that the process is democratic, because as we're seeing consistently through this process, you will very, very rarely find that the scrutiny representative is a member from the opposition parties. It's always from the four parties that make up the executive. So it's not a open and clear system, and there's certainly no scrutiny from opposition parties.
Okay, well, you've raised your points there, Chris. Thank you very much. I'll bring in Councillor Harry Saville, who's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of questions. First one, of course, I thought Jane's response to Chris was interesting about the project management framework. When was that approved, Jane? You said it's been around for a wee while.
It's before my time. I've worked for the council almost 6 years, and when I came in, it was already in place. So I couldn't tell you, I'm afraid, Councillor Harry. Sorry.
2016, didn't you? Okay, because I just wonder how many members from my group would have been involved in these sort of decisions when Chris was in cabinet. Just a thought.
Okay, anyway, I can clarify that if you like, Harry. The ones that I set up, every task and finish group or working group that I was involved with as a cabinet member in social services, in community development, there were always Conservatives on there, because I made the point that I wanted opposition members on that. And Frank will tell you he was on a social service working group on a couple of them, and there were other members of the Conservatives as well on others. And when it came to the Abergele regeneration one, every one of the 5 members was on, including the councillors like Sam and his brother, who was a councillor at the time, and John McClelland, who was also a Conservative. So we were very inclusive, and I certainly was.
Thank you for your comments again, Chris.
Helpful. I just wondered then if...
I wanted to make one point, Chair, and Jane says there were only 2 members on programme board. Well, the Bay Life board in Colwyn Bay had 2 members. I was one, and the other was Councillor Mary Doyle, a Conservative.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris. Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Oh, hold on. No, Chair. I have another question.
Okay. Sorry, Harry. Yeah.
I didn't know the Labour Party was monopolising this evening, but there we go. I was just going to say, if Chris were happy to provide some sort of written details, that'd be great. But another question I had, there's a reference, and Jodie mentioned it, about identifying a preferred RSL partner in the report. What I wanted to understand is that at this stage, if we're only agreeing the programme board, what do we envisage the RSL partner doing at this stage, and where do we see their involvement going in the future? I'd just be interested to understand that a little bit more, because it wasn't clear to me from the report.
Do you want me to take that one, Joe? Do you? So what we're proposing to do, Councillor Harry, is, so the whole purpose of this board is to accelerate the delivery of the housing programme. One function will be to try and clear obstacles. Those might be complexities around land ownership, infrastructure requirements, etc. The other is to be able to work in a much more streamlined way with whoever actually ends up building the houses. So what we want to be able to do in this instance, for this period of time where we're trying to build a set number of houses very quickly, is to be able to identify a single partner who is recruited at the front of the process to work with us to bring these sites forward. So what we're doing is working with a legal firm to help identify a procurement process where we could select that partner. Once that's been done in an open, transparent and fair way, that partner will have been commissioned in effect to join the Conway team and then to deliver those sites so that they can be part of our project meetings and they can advise us on the best way to lay out the scheme, etc., etc. We're not ready to bring that to you yet. So what we're going to be doing is taking a two-stage approach. First of all, in our next report, we'll be talking to you about the sites we think are going to be the easiest and quickest to bring forward and the amount of affordable housing we would like on those sites. We would then like another few weeks to explore the best way to procure that partner and to undertake a market exercise. And then we envisage coming back to you probably after the election, possibly about early June, maybe late May, with a proposal that says, these are the sites we think, this is the amount of affordable we think we can deliver, this is the preferred partner we have identified, explaining the process we've used, and these are the terms that are being proposed for the disposal. And then members will need to make a formal decision at that point on all of those elements. So it is a multi-stage process. Today is just about formalising the establishment of that board so that we can really get that process moving.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Aaron Wynne, thank you for being patient.
No, that's okay, thank you. Diolch Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Jodie, for coming to our meeting tonight to present this report. I'm more than happy to propose that we go with the recommendations, which I believe is option 2. And I'll also propose out Councillor Chris as our scrutiny rep on the board. Diolch.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Aaron Wynne. Councillor Charlie Mccubery, the leader.
Thanks for letting me speak, Chair. I just wanted to say I'm really supportive of this. The reason I joined this council was I saw this coming, essentially, you know, back in my oldest agency days, 15, 16 families turning up to rent a house. It was clearly broken then, but we're now in, we've all referred to it as a housing crisis. So we need to look at new ways of doing things. We need to accelerate delivery. Jane's outlined some of the reasons for having a chosen partner, but it's also, if you've got 2 or 3 sites, they can manage their funding, they can manage their workforce. There's different elements to how you do, each process comes along in terms of the planning and the delivery. So it creates some certainty. The system we have at the moment where each RSL goes off and draws up plans and we have to assess each plan and go through them and decide which one to use. It's expensive. You're duplicating work, which is essentially public money. So it's just basically on an initial basis just to see how could we do this better and quicker and deliver more property so we can get people out. I get emails all the time, I'm sure you do, of people in really, really poor circumstances, and we have to take responsibility of this and think this is the best way we can deliver. But as Jane said, there's lots more stages to delivery, and I don't think it's a political issue. We all know we need to get more affordable housing for the people themselves, but also for the cost in our budget. It's both ends of the spectrum. So I just wanted to say I'm very supportive of it, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Pat Hebron.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for being late. Can I second Councillor Chris Hughes to be on the board as well, please?
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for a member to sit on this programme board? Nope. Okay, jolly good. So I'll take it to the recommendation, which is on page 66, and it's 2.1 that members approve the establishment of affordable housing programme and structure, and 2.2 is that the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee nominate a representative to sit on the Affordable Housing Programme Board, We only seem to have one nomination, which is Councillor Chris Hughes. So congratulations, Chris. We will now put it to the vote. Are we going to have a roll call, Jane?
Yes, please, members. Okay, sorry, bear with me. So please indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard?
For.
Councillor Philip Capper?
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie?
For.
Councillor Samantha Cotton?
For.
Councillor Keith Eales?
For.
Councillor Pat Hebron?
For.
Councillor Chris Hughes?
Obliged.
Councillor Ian Jenkins?
Obliged.
Councillor Don Milne?
For.
Councillor John Roberts?
Obliged.
Councillor Harry Saville?
For.
Councillor Michael Smith?
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith?
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan?
For.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Okay, thank you, members. That was unanimous.
I can confirm that proposal or recommendation has been approved. Thank you, members. We will now move on to item 9, which is the Destination Conway and Management Plan update. And this will be presented by John Merrick, our Business, Tourism and Regeneration Manager. And it's on pages 80 to 103. Good evening, John.
I'm afraid John's not here this evening,
Okay.
so you'll have to put up with me, Councillor Smith. Yeah, John unfortunately has shingles, yeah, it would have been his last. It would have been his last report to present because he's leaving on the 1st of March. But yeah, health comes first.
We wish him a speedy recovery. And,
yes,
we thank you for being with us this evening to present.
No problem. I don't know if it's Storm Dudley or Storm Eunice that's with us at the moment, but if I have to put my camera off, it's because the internet is a bit temperamental. Okay. So the first report this evening is the Destination Conway and Management Plan update. I'm sure that you will all be aware that we have a Destination Conway partnership and has been in existence since 2010. And we've also produced a Destination Conway management plan that was updated in 2019 and it runs until 2029. With the impact of COVID and the uncertainty with the EU transition, the time was right to update the Destination Conway management plan. So we started this process back before the pandemic, but we had to get stalled for obvious reasons. So we wanted to strengthen the partnership. Basically, we had 20 board members and didn't feel that they were representative of our tourism sector. So we went through a process and we pulled together some subgroups. They're on point 3.6, page 82 of your documents. What worked well? Well, we changed from being a partnership that was talked at, and it became very much, the expertise within was valued. We gave them more responsibility and influence to grow the sector in Conway, and in turn, the quality of the decisions were strengthened. So we also, the partnership became stronger in feeding into consultations and the rest of it. But, further improvements needed to be made. Attendance at meetings waned a bit at times. So what we did was during August and September of 2021, we invited tourism businesses across Conway to apply to join the 5 subgroups. And you'll see from 3.16 of your document there that 91 businesses and individuals showed an interest. We then went through the process with Councillor Louise Emery, and the regional engagement manager from Visit Wales, and John as well, and sifted through the applications and then went on to sort of put them into the different subgroups. As you can see from 3.15, the list of the subgroups, they've all got a task or work to undertake. And the Destination Conway Partnership chair has been elected. And of those 5 subgroups, each chair will then attend the partnership. We are intending on having two tourism forums every year, hopefully, as things ease up now, that we'll be able to get together and have those face to face. But we'd also, I think the important point is 3.20 is that we're looking to get greater involvement of the local communities. The intention is to establish a community subgroup as well, because we all know that, you know, our communities do, maybe suffer is not the right word, but there are implications when you know, both those 6 weeks over the summer period that they do, the influx of tourists that come in and the impact on our communities. So now we've got a Destination Conway partnership structure in place and a dedicated subgroup. We'd like to ask for, you know, the recommendation is that we ask them to update the plan and the action plan going forward, and then you know, it'll come then back to Conway to sort of sign off. So there's 3 options, and the recommendation is we go for option 2, which is to allow the Destination Management Strategy Group to continue with their work. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ellen, for presenting the report. Our first speaker is Councillor Harry Saville.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to propose option 2.
Thank you very much, Harry. Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Joan Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. This is very timely, I think. The Destination Management Board had definitely run its course. It was the same old people saying the same old things. So I'm pleased to see this, and I'm happy to second Councillor Harry.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Joan Vaughan. Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to you, Ellen. I just wanted to ask, how is the Craig Conway scheme fit together with this plan? Because if I recall correctly, they're quite similar. Well, yes, there is a representation from Craig Conway staff who are going to be part of the subgroups, and that will interlink in that way. Heritage and Craig Conway is an integral part of everything we do in the county now, so it must be interlinked with the destination management plan. Thank you.
Ellen, are you replying to that?
I have.
Sorry, that was me saying thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
apologies.
So
I'll bring it into the next speaker then, which is Councillor Chris Hughes.
You're on mute, Councillor Chris. Councillor Chris, you're on mute.
Sorry, Chair, I somehow managed to unmute myself and mute myself again. I agree with Councillor Joan. The previous board had run its course, and I think I welcome this. But one of the things I raised at the last time we developed it, a Destination Conway board, was the fact that I would like to have seen maybe the chair make an annual presentation on their findings and on their work to the scrutiny committee, because I think it's important we don't just get to read the booklets, but we understand what their priorities, understand what they want to emphasise, what the committee wants to emphasise to us. So I would propose a third proposal that we as a scrutiny committee extend an invite to the chair of the board to come and address the scrutiny committee, perhaps midway through the year or at the end of each summer perhaps, and give us an understanding of any issues they have, any concerns, that we can then look at that in terms of policy development issues. I know the officers will be doing work around any responses that come in that way, but I do think it would be useful, extremely useful for us as members to also have a handle, rather than just reading a report, which sometimes doesn't always, reading a report doesn't always tell the story. I just propose that, Chair.
Sorry, Chris. I was just wondering whether it's best to be presented to this committee, or whether to have it given on one of the member development sessions where the wider membership would get to hear.
yeah, that would work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that proposal forward and ask Mr. Tracy from the ski centre in Llandudno if you'd like to come along and present. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think member development, it sits better there, Chris, I feel.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be a way of that board feeding into the process, and whether it's a member development, I'm happy with that. It will at least give members the opportunity to go along to those meetings and hear what's been said.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Councillor Pat Hebron.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Alan, for presenting the report. Could you elaborate a little bit more? I may have missed it, where residents come into this and how they gain access to one of these committees. I may have missed it. I just wanted, could you just elaborate on that for me, please?
No, you won't have missed it. We haven't gone out to target any residents. It's the businesses and the tourism sector that we've gone out for inputs. But I mentioned the community element of it that we need to strengthen. So that will be a piece of work that we will go forward and do. And most of these members as well are residents of business owners who are residents of Conwy as well. So it's twofold in some respect for some of the members, but it is the community aspect that we need to strengthen. We have been working with Gwynedd and the National Park as well, looking at how they're becoming more respectful tourism and going down that road of making sure our communities are at the front of all our discussions. So that's when I think the residents will become more involved.
I mean, I appreciate the importance of tourism in somewhere like a town like Llandudno, but it's just to sort of think about the tourists and the people who live in those places as well. I appreciate the businesses and the economic value of businesses, but it's just that idea of the residents getting an opportunity to contribute in some way. And yeah, thank you.
And it's that respectful tourism, isn't it? It's the all year round. People live here all year round. So yeah, just making sure that we can assist where we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Pat. Councillor Harry Saville.
Chairman, thank you again. I was only going to second the point made by Chris until Chris, I think, suggested following you, Chair, it could go to member development. I thought, look, tourism is a huge local economic driver. The report points out that, facilitating the meetings of the group actually is a Conway responsibility or a Conway function and has financial implications for the authority. And we do receive periodic reviews to this committee, don't we, on biodiversity and I think decarbonisation. So I wondered whether or not there was any merit in actually Chris's initial proposal. And then if something came out of one of those reports from this committee, we can actually make a direct recommendation to Cabinet, can't we? If it goes to member development, we then have to ask for it to come to a committee, and that makes it a much more bureaucratic process. So I was just initially going to second Chris's initial point, actually. If it's still a proposal, I don't know, Chris.
Well, there's no issue in requesting for any item to come to scrutiny. It's a fairly simple process, as you know, Harry. I still feel it sits better with member development, and the wider membership can hear the progress and what's happening personally.
No, take that, Chair.
Yeah. The reason, can I respond, Chair?
Yeah.
I think the reason I accepted the Chair's proposal is simply because here, as I said earlier, here at the scrutiny, you're going to get 20 minutes maybe. Yeah, whereas at member development, you could have an hour or more, and that would allow for a more fuller report and a more fuller debate on the issue. So whilst I initially felt that coming here would be a good idea, the more I think about it, the fact that we would have longer to actually get into the nitty-gritty of any particular issue, the more I feel that member development would probably be the easier option, because it's only the chairs and vice chairs meets quite frequently to consider whether reports can come to scrutiny, and that could be done very, very quickly for member development, I think. So I understand Councillor Harry Savile's rationale behind it, because it was the same rationale as I had initially, but I just feel that there is that opportunity to have a longer debate, and I don't want to hog the meeting.
Fair enough.
Okay, members, so we've got a recommendation which is on page 81, is that the report is noted and the Destination Management Strategy subgroup continues to review Destination Conway Management Plan and Action Plan. So I need a proposer for that item. I also need a seconder for Councillor Chris Hughes's proposal that it goes to member development, which I think is where it sits best. So, Councillor Harry, you're going to second that? That's great.
Do that, Chair.
So we need to.
I'll propose both the other.
Okay, you're going to propose both.
Yeah.
All right, Councillor Chris, and Harry will second them, I'm sure. So we will just. It's a show of hands, is it, for a to be noted, Jane?
Yes. Show of hands is adequate.
Okay, members, if you're happy with those recommendations, could you please show? Oh, yes, that's a full house. Thank you, members. That's very much appreciated. We'll now move on to item 9.2, which is the update on the refresh of the Conway Economic Growth Strategy 2017 to 2027. The action plan to be presented, well, it would have been John Merrick, but as we've heard, he's unwell and with shingles at this moment in time. So we will presume it is Ellen again, and this is on pages 104 to 147.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So yeah, this is a report on the updates on the refresh of the Conway Economic Growth Strategy and the action plan. The strategy was developed and launched in 2017 and a 10-year strategy which gave a clear vision of the aspirations we had for growth and prosperity for our county. However, 2 to 3 years into the plan, as we all know, significant events have happened that have affected our economy, being obviously the pandemic, the EU transition. So we thought it was timely, really, to update and look at our existing economic growth strategy. So in November 2020, we commissioned Litchfields to look at it and also taken into effect what had been happening in the world and look at our key priorities to see if they were still viable. So from the ambitions of the strategy are appended in the documents, but what I've done is just given you a flavour, really, under each ambition from 3.1 of the report to 3.13 around the types of things that we're doing to tackle those ambitions. So I'm not going to go into any detail, go through any of them in any detail. I'm happy to take any questions. What we have got is the Economic Growth Strategy Board that we report to quarterly around the progress of this action plan. It's quite a new action plan and we're making our way through it. But yeah, that's where we're at the moment. Councillor Louise has put a comment there in 5.2, sort of saying that it's like an SPR for the business team. So yeah, and I'd just like to acknowledge the thanks to John as well in that, as the same as what Councillor Louise said around his commitments to Conway around both of these areas of work this evening. So the options is the option is that an annual, well, two options, but the recommendation is an annual summary of the action plan is presented here. Diolch.
Thank you, Ellen. I will now open it up to the floor. Do we have any questions on the report, members? If not, is there anybody wishing to propose the recommendation, which is on page 105? Councillor Geoffrey Corrie and Councillor Chris Hughes to second. So the recommendation is 105, that an annual summary is presented to the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Just to show of hands on this, members, if you are happy, could you please show? Thank you very much. That's a full house again, I think. So that has been approved. We will now move on to item 10, which is the approval of the active travel network. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much for presenting those reports, Alan.
No problem. Diolch yn fawr.
And we wish John a speedy recovery.
Yeah, I'll pass on that. Thank you. Diolch.
Thank you. So item 10 is the approval of the active travel network map presented by Dylan Wynne-Jones, our traffic and network manager. I presume that the members have seen the appendices with their various areas and the proposed active travel for the future. So good evening, Dylan. Are you there, Dylan?
It doesn't appear to be in the meeting, Chair. What I'll do, I'll give him a message now, because we are running slightly ahead of schedule, aren't we? So just bear with me.
All right, thank you.
Andy's coming in now, so maybe he can take it. Andy Wilkinson.
All right, thank you. For members' information, this report is on pages 148 to 158. Good evening, Andrew.
Hello, good evening. Sorry, I was following on the live stream, not in the meeting. So yeah, I just joined.
My apologies, we're ahead of schedule.
You're running a bit ahead of schedule. Just let me get the report up here. Okay. So members will recall that we previously come to committee and to cabinet with the draft consultation and the introduction to the consultation of the active travel network maps. That consultation period has now closed, and we've got some draft active travel network maps for submittal to Welsh Government. It's been through quite, the consultation period was quite extensive. So we initially had through the commonplace a sort of heat map system, which was a kind of a free, where residents and members could put in free form comments to draw attention to particular barriers to active travel or routes that they required improving, and other various comments about how we could improve active travel in the area. So after that phase of consultation, we went on to the next phase, which was us looking at all those responses, and we had a total of 671 responses, and look at how we could update our active travel network maps based on those comments. Remembering we did have some existing maps which were which have been in place for 4 years, I think. We've obviously done a lot of schemes that were on those network maps, and there will be new sort of potential routes and opportunities which have arisen over the last 4 years. So those have led to the new draft maps, which have been available again for consultation for 12 weeks, which is the statutory consultation period. And they've been available on our website. And again, we've taken on board any comments we've had on that. So PDFs are in the pack of each of the settlement areas. And also something which is new for this round of active travel maps. Previously, active travel under the legislation was concentrated on particular defined settlements, which were selected and then approved by Welsh Government, and didn't look so much at connections between settlements. But that's sort of now something that is being looked at, and you'll notice there's a couple of maps in there, Conway West and Conway East, I think they're called, which show some wider and longer distance routes. So hopefully every member will have at some stage had a look at the maps in their area, got in touch with us over suggestions or amendments, and these are now the draft maps which we are required to submit to approval for Welsh Government. But if there are any changes still required as a result of deliberations and debate at scrutiny or cabinet, we can still make those changes. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments on the maps, or to if members want to submit, I would say over the next few days, a last final chance to have their say. We'd be happy to look at those and to accommodate amendments before we submit the final maps.
Okay, thank you very much for presenting the report, Andrew. I'll bring in our first speaker, which is the Vice Chair, Councillor Sam Cotton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, just I pulled up the maps today, and just looking at the Degamway one, I think it's page 5 in the appendix. Just 3 queries on there, really. You've got, gosh, hopefully you'll know where it is. There's a red hatched path that it says it's a future walking route from what I believe is from the All Saints Church to the top of Park Drive. That's already, if that's what I'm thinking of, that's already a public footpath, isn't it?
Yes.
So
yes.
Is that suggesting that there are going to be improvements made to that path?
Yes, possibly. Yes, it flags that up so that
Okay.
We so with these network, we are not going to do everything that's on all of these maps.
Okay.
But when we are applying for funding in the future, we can't do anything that's not on these maps. If you
fair enough. Okay,
if you get my drift. I think we recognise with that All Saints Church to Park Drive, it is sort of a country path.
Yes.
So, improvements wouldn't be, if we were to make improvements, I think we'd just perhaps be looking at, making it sort of the surface more suitable for perhaps wheelchairs and that sort of thing, rather than a full-on sort of cycle route, which is why it's only as a proposed walking, not cycling.
Okay, I mean, you'd need to put because there's kissing gates at either end of that at the moment, so obviously you'd need to put something there. The next query I have appears to be a future cycle way, which it looks like it's going down Beach Road. So you turn down by the Degamway Castle, and rather than going along the front, Marine Crescent, the back of Marine Crescent is called Beach Road. That's a one-way street. Do you know where I am?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That's a one-way. My concern is, and I probably should declare an interest because I live on Sefton Terrace, which is the next one back. That's a one-way street, Beach Road, and currently the cycle. It is suggested to cyclists that they come off the promenade and stay on the road. And then if they wish to continue on the cycleway, they get back on the path by the signal box, having continued along Marine Crescent. But that's suggesting a change. And my only concern with that is it's a one-way street.
I think with that one, Councillor Cotton, these dashed lines are say that therefore desired routes to get from
Okay.
one place to another. They don't necessarily mean it's on that street they would go down, but
Okay.
somewhere that we need to improve that route from Mccubery village through to West Shore. So
Okay.
I think, and that's the same for all members. I think these routes are somewhere in that area. It's like they're a deliberately thick line, though I think
Okay.
I'm just looking at that one, and I think it probably does need to be shifted just to the west to follow the
Just for
promenade,
clarity, because
so
it's quite,
people don't get the wrong idea. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and my final point, and you probably know I'm going to say this. If we are looking at something that we might desire to happen in the future, could I suggest that footpath 73 is added to the draft map as a red hatched line? So you have, and you'll know where that is. It's the disputed crossing at the bottom of Pentoin Hill onto the coastal path, and I suggest a walking, future walking route, because I'm not confident it could be anything else at the moment. But just if we're talking about things that we might desire to happen in the future, I'd like that to be added, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I just ask members that if they've got any personal points, like the vice chair, that they do them external from this meeting? Otherwise, we will be here all night. Andrew has said that we've got until next week, I think, to put proposals through for additional routes. So just bear that in mind, please, members. Our next speaker is Councillor Keith Eales.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Andy. Thank you for the report. It's just a quick one. Llandulus, it's not actually listed separately, despite quite a lengthy sort of run of routes. It's tagged onto the Llisfine map. Is there any reason why that is, or will it impact anything happening in the future for Llandulus?
What page are we on of the? Okay.
Yeah, I've gone into the attachments and chosen the Llisfine.
Page 12. Yeah. Okay. No, I think both communities are included on that map and in the settlement, so that won't affect anything. Anything either way, as long as Llandulus is included on the map, which it is, as far as I can see, then yeah, just the name of it doesn't make any difference.
Right. Okay. The other quick question, I hope. I've got an issue with the footpath, which was originally the active travel route for school children walking to school, that they still have to walk up an unpavemented road, which is a busy road, which is filling up with developments up the hill. You've got the main road marked in a solid red line. Then you've got the road that the school is on, Minffordd Road, marked in a solid red line. But the link in between on Pencoed Road, which it's been an ongoing, it's like 30 years this has been ongoing. So they've had funding for feasibility and everything, but it's not linked. Is there any reason why that isn't linked with a solid red line?
Doesn't it have a dashed blue line there?
It does have a dashed blue line, but it's shown that. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, that the dash blue means that's a future route that we want to do. The solid red lines show that they are existing walking routes. So for exactly the reason you just said, that Pencoed Road, you can't safely walk up it now because there's no pavement. So that's not a solid red line. Solid red shows existing. The dash blue line shows things we want to do.
Right. Okay. So it's not marked as red because it hasn't got a pavement, or it's not a safe.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keith Eales. Councillor Pauline Heap is our next speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not a member of this committee, but I just wanted to clarify something that's all with Andy. Let's have a look now. Let's go on to this. I've been looking at the Abergele routes, and I know I did make a suggestion of a route to the Abergele Hospital, you know, for people working. And I can see a broken blue line. Obviously, though, it's only in the settlement area. I'm just wondering how far that goes. Would it go to the hospital, that route? That's all I'm checking, really.
I would think that's the intention. I'm just looking to see if it's on one of our, if we have a wider map. Okay.
Yeah. I know it is a very well used road for people to walk on, you see. It's a very dangerous road for people to walk on, so that's why I suggested
okay, yeah, I think I'd have to check that, Councillor Pauline, because what these PDFs are just snapshots of a whole county map, which is sort of interactive, you can zoom in and out of, but I would be pretty sure that that's going to the hospital, but I can check that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Pauline. Our next speaker is Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Diolch, Nigel.
Thank you, Nigel.
And Andy.
And good evening, Andy. I have a question about the scheme in Llanrwst, which is on page 11 in Appendix A. In Llanrwst, it shows that the Riverside Walk shall be considered in the future for cyclists in addition to pedestrians. I'm sure that you will have walked along the Riverside Walk in Llanrwst in the past, walking along the path, this very narrow path by the Riverside. Can make one nervous, not to mention going on it along it on a cycle. What is the thinking behind changing this to a cycle path?
As I said, interesting you mentioned that that route, Councillor Aaron, because that's one I think we are looking at potentially for the in the near future rather than medium term, and it would be upgrading that path to be able to allow not just cyclists but all users, wheelchairs, motorised scooters, that sort of thing, because we think that's a good link from the Plasendré site in the town centre through to the bridge across the Trevry without having to go through into town and to the A470. So that is a route we are interested in upgrading, but and what a route appearing on these maps means isn't that just we're going to let cyclists on it without doing anything to it. It means that's a potential future application for funding to upgrade to allow the improvements to be made appropriate to its future use.
Essentially upgrading the boardwalk that's currently along the Riverside Walk, potentially.
It would need to be, yes, if it was to take cycles, yes.
Fantastic, great. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Aaron. Councillor Pat Hebron.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted clarification of a route which is on here on map 9. It's an area, I don't know whether it's fairways, and I just wanted to ensure, well, I wanted you to clarify, is it fairways? Because bearing in mind, you know, there aren't the street names and everything. Do you know where I'm talking about, Andrew? It's like a short blue and white.
I can see there's a route in fairways, yes.
Can you tell whether that is in the middle of the estate or is it on the edge next to the golf, near the golf club? Can you?
It looks like it's on an existing road, and again, I think when we do look to upgrade routes to allow cycling, it may not be the construction of a dedicated cycle path. It may be on road, which would then require sort of certain some changes to perhaps the road layout, sort of transitions on and off, drop curbs, making sure that vehicle speeds were low, which they are going to be at that location. But it looks to me like the intention that would be an on-road route along one of the existing roads. I think I can't quite tell at that scale.
Yeah, I think I know.
Do you have a particular concern about that, Councillor Pat?
No, it's just that I had requested that the footpath at the side of the villas was considered. Or it looks as though that hasn't been listed, but you know, and there was another one I was interested in, but maybe is there anyone I could query that with, or you know, suggestions? Is it Paul who?
Yes, Paul. I will take that back. I'm noting down everyone's queries, and I'll take them back to the team, and I'll ask a member of the team to contact you and clarify that one.
Yeah. The other one was at the side of Brook Street. Councillor Gregg probably knows where I mean. You know, the is it Archway? You know, the little arch as you go into Maddox Street.
Yeah, Marble Arch.
Marble Arch, yeah. That there, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pat Hebron. And our final speaker seems to be Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you again, Chairman. Sam, am I right that you made a proposal in respect of the footpath 73?
Yes, I believe I did, yeah.
Chair, I appreciate the point you've made about small individual changes being referred to officers and they can incorporate those in. I wonder though if we could, and I'm happy to second Sam's proposal, if we could take a vote on including that. The reason I think that that's worth considering as an exception to the rule here is it's the issue about whether or not there's a legal footpath there is something that's least recently gone through licensing. This committee, no, sorry, not this committee, but this council have recently decided to recognise that that is a legal public footpath. I know at the time when that went through licensing, it had the support of at least 3 of the 4 local members, both the vice chair and councillors Mike Priestley and Sue Shotter. So I wonder very much, you know, as a as a gesture of support, whether or not we could propose that that very small change is added to this. I remember one of the issues that came out for discussion about whether or not it should be a footpath were around safety issues and refunding of mitigation measures. I think, as Andrew's mentioned, this might provide an opportunity for funding to be drawn down in the future. Whether or not it would be applicable to a rail crossing, I don't know. But as Andrew said, we don't have to deliver these. It's just getting them on the list to potentially deliver. So I'd like to second Councillor Sam's proposal in respect of that 1 foot crossing. And I think it is a worthwhile exception, Chair, if I may.
Oh, you've got a proposer and a seconder, so we will put it to the vote. Do we need to do a roll call on this, Jane?
Yes, we do. Please, members.
Take it away then, please, Jane.
Okay, thank you. Please indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard. Carol gone.
I think Carol's had to go, Jane.
Okie doke. Councillor Philip Capper.
4.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
4.
Councillor Samantha Cotton.
4.
Councillor Keith Eales.
4.
Councillor Pat Hebron.
4.
Councillor Chris Hughes. Councillor Ian Jenkins.
Obliged.
Councillor Donald Milne. I think Councillor Don may have left. Councillor John Roberts, I think he's left too.
John.
Councillor Harry Saville.
4.
Councillor Michael Smith.
4.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
4.
And Kingorydd Aronwyn.
Obliged.
Okay, thank you, members. That was unanimous.
So yeah, that has been approved and it'll go forward onto the active travel future plan. Thank you. We don't have any other speakers, so I will take you to the recommendation, which is on page 149. That the Cabinet members approve the Conway County Borough Council's ATNM prior to submission to the Welsh Government for ministerial approval. That's the recommendation. Do we have a proposer and seconder on that? Councillor Keith Eales and Councillor Harry Saville. If members are happy, then we'll put it to a roll call. Is that correct, Jane?
Yes, please, members. Okay, please indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Philip Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Samantha Cotton.
For.
Councillor Keith Eales.
For.
Councillor Pat Hebron.
For.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor Ian Jenkins.
Obliged.
Councillor Donald Mill. He's gone. Councillor John Roberts has left. Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
For.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Thank you, members. That was unanimous.
Yes, that has been approved and it'll go forward to Cabinet. Thank you, members. And thank you, Andrew, for stepping into the breach there. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 11, which is the use of CCTV footage to detect environmental crime. And this is presented by Matthew Frankham, our Public Protection Manager, on pages 159 to 163. Are you with us, Matthew?
Yes, I'm here, Nigel. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule and it's very much appreciated that you've been able to join us early.
Good stuff. Okay. I'll just do a quick introduction then, if that's okay. Just touch on one or two points and then pass back to you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. This committee requested a report on Conway's the use of Conway's public space CCTV to detect environmental crime, including an update on the use of the Keep Us Tidy toolkits. So these are basically, this is what we're going to cover in the report that you've got before you. It's outlined below. So I'm sure you'll be familiar with the CCTV service. It plays a key role in helping to detect crime in its widest sense. But particularly for the purpose of this report, it identifies and assists with the enforcement of environmental crime and helps to ensure quality of the local environment and therefore quality of life. Service operates 24/7. The report goes on to detail the standards that we operate to and the accreditations that it's got. It links seamlessly with all relevant council departments and the North Wales Police. It's got very good linkages to all those services, agencies, authorities, and it helps to ensure appropriate. It does inform intelligence and information to ensure appropriate action is taken in response to any sort of situations the camera operators detect. In relation to the Keep Us Tidy toolkits, this part of the report, and we've collaborated or consulted with ERF on this as they use the toolkits there. So they have used the toolkits in social media locally to encourage responsible dog ownership and attitude change, with the focus of the toolkits now moving to roadside litter. So the CCTV service actively supports detection and investigation of environmental crime and helps direct available resources subject to capacities and priorities. I'm just going to drop down to the report. Paragraph 3.6 outlines the sort of things that we do with the cameras. I don't want to read it through in detail. You can see it yourself. There's quite broad. You can imagine a camera and a pole can pick up all sorts of things. And we pass it on to the relevant department, agency, and appropriate action is taken. It can be multitudinous and anything, to be honest. Going back to my little intro, our only sort of issue longer term really is trying to develop the service now that we've got some good accreditation as an alarm receiving centre or service and sustainable funding arrangements to meet service need. We need to secure that in the longer term. So with that, I just request members note the report, that the report details goes into more detail there, but it just really runs through the sorts of things we do. If members want to ask any questions, Nigel.
Okay, well, thank you very much for presenting the report, Matthew. Councillor Harry Saville is our first speaker.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. It's a question, first of all, for Matthew. So, different police forces across the country, and I get, obviously, we're not a police force, but when they're trying to seek evidence in relation to a particular instance, what they'll do is they'll publish footage, maybe still footage from CCTV cameras. Is there any reason when we, obviously, if there's fly tipping on well, anywhere in the public realm, that we would be responsible for taking enforcement action? Is there any reason, if this were picked up by CCTV, perhaps a temporary camera, if it's in a hotspot, is there any reason we can't take still images, bung them on social media as a local authority and encourage members of the public to come forward? And so in some cases, some fly tipping incidents are real blight on the community. I think they're, you know, incredibly unpopular. I'm sure a lot of members of the public would be happy to come forward with information. So I wondered, do we do that? And if not, why not? And could we start doing that as an authority?
I don't know if Peter wants to come in here. We haven't done that, no. We haven't put the resources towards that. We have GDPR issues, we should be careful of that as we liaise with our GDPR colleagues. It's not so, we haven't actually, since we don't have any active proactive enforcement resource that we can really chase down as such. If we get evidence brought to our attention, we will use it. If the cameras see something, then we will take stills and we will investigate that. We will use that as evidence, but we don't go out to the public to seek and ask information. That would require a lot more resource that we don't have in regulatory services to develop that capability. So perhaps if I can hand over to Peter, you might want to add a bit.
Yeah, it's something that has come up in the past as to whether or not we can do this or whether we ought to do this, and as Matt says, whether or not we've got the resource to to do it. I mean, I suppose in terms of resource, if we did have such images, it would be relatively low resource to do what you're asking, Councillor Harry. I'm happy to revisit it with Derek, because obviously it does have GDPR implications, and I can't remember the reason, but when I have raised it before, it's not as clear cut as it might seem. But I'm happy to take it back and have that conversation with Derek again and reconsider it.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Chair, I wonder if you'd be happy if Peter were happy to go away and explore that with Derek and the GDPR team, or I don't know if it's just Derek now, but if Peter would be happy to just come back with a written explanation in due course to the committee.
I'd be happy with that, yeah.
Cool. Well, could I propose that then?
Okay.
Make that as a proposal. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for Harry's proposal? Councillor Sam Cotton. I think, do we need another roll call, Jane?
No, you've still got another speaker at the minute.
Okay.
Councillor Michael.
All right, Councillor Michael.
No, it was just following on from Harry. You know, the public doing it being our eyes and ears on a still picture would be ideal. The resource implication is sifting through their information, isn't it? So I'd be happy for that to come back to us and see how that pans out. But yeah, Harry's hit the nail on the head there. That's how we get the job done. So yeah, I would. Sam seconded it, so I'm all in support.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Phil Capper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm not at all sure that an image of somebody actually does fall under the GDPR regulations as personal information. But apart from that, my question is this: could we actually use this in relation to dog fouling, which is a perennial problem, I'm sure, in all of our wards?
Well, it's certainly an environmental crime.
Yeah.
Peter, would you happen to?
Yeah, I think it's the same point. I think if there are CCTV images of members of the public committing crimes, and we are allowed to do it and decide to do that, then whether it be fly tipping or dog fouling or littering, I guess it's the same. It will be the same point, the same question.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, thank you.
Can I suggest, Mr. Chairman,
yes?
Just coming back on it, you know, if we have any doubts about the GDPR, why don't we just ask the Commissioner? The police do it, so there we are.
Indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And the BBC on Crime Watch.
Yeah.
Councillor Gronwy Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Phil has prompted me to come in because I have been asked recently about our ability to enforce, and I'm sure Peter could give us the information of where we have been successful, where we have taken enforcement action on such things as littering and dog fouling. Now, I was asked by a couple, could we look at resurrecting the task and punish group? If you remember, we set up after the Kingdom left the scene, because certainly there was quite a controversial issues around the enforcement the county took at that time with dog fouling, littering, and all sorts of issues. If you remember, that task and punish group basically faded out, not coming to a resolution. It is very much about resource issue, and if we had resources, and if the council were minded to do that, it's something that you may wish to look at in the future. So, but I'm sure Peter could give us the information of where we have taken enforcement action, and perhaps we need maybe to make that more public so that it is a preventative, that people know that we do penalise whenever we can. But it is very much a resource issue. If you remember, there's a lot of controversy over our Kingdom team. Even though they did bring an awful lot of money into the authority, it did also bring a lot of criticism at the same time. I'd welcome members' views on your thoughts 2 years later or 3 years later on where we go next, because certainly during lockdown we've seen an awful lot of people with dogs, more probably than there was previously, and I haven't particularly seen a great cases of fouling, but some people seem to think they are. So I'd welcome the committee to look at this possibly in some time in the future.
Okay, so is your question to Peter about the committee?
Well, it was, is there an appetite from this steering group for such a working group to be set up? If so, be mindful that there was a lot of work done previously, because I'm at your disposal should this committee decide that a working group might be able to come up with some sort of methodology going forward.
Okay. We'll let members ponder on that thought, Gronwy. Councillor Greg Robbins.
Thank you for letting me speak, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, a couple of comments on that. The last meeting of the task and finish group that looked into this, recommendations were made, and one of them was that the whole situation be reviewed after 12 to 15 months once the enforcement services of Kingdom have been dispatched with. As a result of COVID, that's not happened. So I think we do need to review what the situation is moving forward. Although obviously I personally would like to see us going back to an external enforcement. I think it'd be far better to have any enforcement done internally. That's a personal view, and up to the members of the committee to look at that going forward. One thing I would state though is the AQ figures, which show the cleanliness of streets in Conway. Obviously, it's not every street is taken as an average over a certain number of streets, but that's actually improved since the days of Kingdom. So it's not as clear as cut, although the perception might be slightly different.
Okay, well, thank you for those comments, Councillor Gregg. Councillor Keith Eales.
Thank you, Chair. It was just in relation. Thank you, Matthew, for the report as well. Makes interesting reading. It's just a quick one. We had such an issue in Llandulus with dog fouling and fly tipping that the community council did purchase cameras, nature-looking cameras to provide surveillance in hotspots. And I think the way that we worked around the GDPR or enforcing was that there was portable CCTV and operation signs were moved around the village. So as long as there was a notification that CCTV was operating, it sort of provided the backup for using the evidence against enforcement as well. So whether that could be explored, but alternatively, if it's clear cut that we're trying to identify someone who has dropped litter, I think we should put it out there. And if they've got a complaint about GDRB, then they're quite welcome to come forward and complain, which would probably save sifting through hundreds of Facebook posts identifying who it was. So just an alternative thinking, you know.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, members. So we've had a question from Councillor Garonwy whether we ought to have a committee look at it. I think Councillor Gregg has confirmed that we do have a committee and they are overdue to report back. Is that correct, Greg?
Oh, it was a working group, but
working group.
As far as I understand, the working group was put in abeyance, not disbanded.
Yes.
So it could be reformed. Obviously, now realistically, have to be after the election, but that would obviously seem the obvious way forward.
Okay.
Can I just confirm? Yeah, we did have a task and finish group that looked at this, and I think they reported back, like Greg said, probably about 18 months ago. So, and it did have a terms of reference. So, whether that needs to be refreshed post-elections.
Yeah, I think we ought to sort of make that a recommendation perhaps tonight. But I'll bring in Peter Brown.
Yeah, it was just to carry on from what Councillor Gregg said. Really, in my recollection, it was the last task and finish group was basically it finished on the basis that there were the Keep Wales Tidy tools coming in, and we needed to give time to see what they were and whether or not they would help us going forward. And it seems from reading the report that they're not particularly helpful to what was discussed. And the question of whether it's what members need to decide is to, if the council wants to enforce and it wants to enforce in-house, the council has to decide how much enforcement and how much resource it wants to put into that, because it does come at a cost.
That's something for the task and finish to perhaps reconvene and look at. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, if it hasn't already been proposed, I would like to propose that we do that, because I think certainly from members that I've spoken to over the last few months, there has been that we're seeing increases in littering, increases in dog fouling and all that sort of thing, and I think it needs to be looked at. I don't have a crystal ball to suggest what the outcome would be, but it's certainly something we need to look at, because it's becoming, something that's raised quite regularly with local residents, and yeah, we can't continue with I don't think we can continue with the status quo, but equally I take on board the concerns that residents have with regards to resources. So I think the best course of action is a working group or task and finish group set up under the auspices of this committee to investigate the options and report back to us at an appropriate time in the future.
Yeah. Well, as Dawn has already confirmed, there is a task and finish group with the terms of reference in place. So
it included.
Sorry?
I thought I was on that task and finish group, Chair, and I thought it had, like Greg said, I thought it had concluded its.
Okay, Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, there was there's no harm in it being reconvened, is there? And then the terms of reference, perhaps post-elections, we bring the terms of reference back here for members to have a look at, because obviously they'll need refreshing, won't they? That's something we could bring back to this committee post-elections, if that's what you want to do. But it was called the Environmental Enforcement Task and Finish Group, so there's nothing stopping you reconvening that, is there?
Okay, would you be happy to propose that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that, Chair.
All right, I'll bring in Councillor Sam Cotton. She's the next speaker.
Thank you, Chair. and I'm happy to second that proposal, Chris's proposal as well. But I think there's a whole piece of work around this, including the regulatory and maybe ERF, and obviously Greg's here. I know I've raised before, and I'm sure many people have raised before, that I don't believe that people are going around dropping washing powder boxes and lasagna packets as they walk down the street. I think a lot of this litter that we see on the streets is the stuff that doesn't quite make it into the back of the recycling van, and going out every Tuesday morning and having to pick something up to some extent. There's no other explanation for it, and I know it's last Tuesday was quite bad because it was particularly windy. I know it's windy at the moment, but actually the weather isn't always to blame for this. So I don't know whether, obviously, in the new term may or may not be here. Perhaps the remit of the working group or the task and finish group could be extended to look at that whole piece of work, please.
Yeah. I think they should do, and I'm sure they will do, Councillor Sam. Our next speaker is Councillor Charlie Mccubery, the leader.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Housing regulator, probably the big cut last sort of 7, 8 years, I think, with the staff over that period. Sorry, I'll just stop my video. Can you hear me okay now, Chair?
Yeah. Can you start again, please, leader?
Yeah. Sorry. It was clear when I took that portfolio that in terms of the actual number of officers, it had taken the biggest cuts across all the services over the last 10 years. I think there was 30 officers lost from there. Members who attended the revenue business cases will be aware that there's a business case in there to substantially increase the number of environmental health officers we have so that we can enforce these really important areas. The business case, I think, off the top of my head, I think it was 6 officers. We trimmed it to 5. Again, some of the difficult decisions we face when making a budget. So I just hope members, when it comes to the actual budget supporting it, will recognise the importance of this and the reason why it's in there, and will give it their full support, because it is certainly something that my residents are very concerned about. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And our final speaker is Councillor Harry Saville.
Well, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to support everything that Sam had said. I don't think it's a suspicion on Sam's part about lasagna boxes and washing powder boxes ending up on the street. But our last full council meeting I did from home, and I have my study window next to me, and I was able to watch during the meeting one of our recycling crews tip my waste into the wagon, rubbish fell on the floor, assumed to be picked up, wasn't picked up, and got in the vehicle and drove off. I think I went outside about an hour later after the meeting, picked it up. So, yeah, I'd entirely agree with Sam. That's something that should be given some consideration.
Yeah, I concur with that, Councillor Harry. I tend to spend a little bit of time on a Monday picking up the bits and bobs on the lawn.
Councillor Nigel, sorry to interrupt. Councillor Ian Jenkins has his real hand up as opposed to his virtual hand.
Yeah, Ian, sorry about that. I didn't quite see that.
Thank you, Nigel. My concern is that you've got National Resources Wales, you've got the National Park and the National Trust, in addition to Conwy Council and landowners. And if fly tipping occurs in any part of that estate, who has the main responsibility to take enforcement action? Because I don't feel that it's fair that the landowners are expected to pay for other people's offences when a mess has been made on their land. It is an issue which is of great concern to me. Do you know whether there's any solution to this? Thank you.
Matthew?
I haven't got a translation facility with me. I have to apologise for that.
All right. So Councillor Ian was asking was that if it people dump onto private landowners' land, dump rubbish on it, he doesn't feel it's fair that the landowner should be responsible for clearing it up. What are your thoughts?
Well, the landowner is responsible for what is on their land, I'm afraid. Private landowners are responsible for things on their land. I know it's very unfair, and they bear no responsibility for what ends up in their land, and it's incredibly frustrating. We get those complaints and things come our way. We do report it to NRW. We do our best to try and chase down any, if we can catch somebody doing it, and we are successful on occasions. We have issued expansion notices for people who have paid the sort of white van person to take waste away, and if we can trace that. We've got a few active ones at the moment. We're investigating in that vein. So if we are able to prosecute and also the FPNs, we do so, and as do NRW. But ultimately, if somebody turns up in the middle of the night and deposits bricks in a field, you've got no evidence who dumped it there. The landowner is unfortunately left with dealing with the problem, however unpleasant that is.
Yeah, indeed. Are you happy with that, Ian?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. It is a difficult one, Ian, and I think personally the way forward is through prosecution and naming and shaming these people. That eventually will win through, I have no doubt about that. Peter Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. It's just a point really arising from what Councillor Charlie said, and whilst we're grateful for any support around the revenue business case, the request for additional staff has been put in, and the whole case has been based on existing pressures, not additional pressures. And obviously, at the moment, we don't have any resource for proactive environmental enforcement, and the business case wasn't put in on the basis that we were asking for more staff to do that. That's simply on the basis of existing. So even if we get those staff, like I say, that wasn't put in on the basis that we carry out that additional work. So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, totally understand, Peter. Thank you for raising that point. Okay, members, so we've had a good debate here. We've got a proposal which I think is by Councillor Harry Saville, and it was seconded by Sam Cotton, I think. Is that correct? Could you just clarify what your proposal is, Harry, please?
Yeah, it was that Peter go away, talk to the GDPR team, see if there's any issues with using still images from our CCTV unit and the portable CCTV cameras to invite evidence through social media of people that might be fly tipping or littering, and if he can report back to the members of this committee in writing.
Okay, so that's the proposal that's on the table. Jane, do we need a roll call for this?
Yes, if you've no objection, members, I think that's the best option.
Okay.
So,
and is there a second amendment?
Yes, sorry.
Do you want to take all of the recommendations together? I'm just thinking, do you want to take, if nobody's got objections, so there's a proposal to establish a task and finish group.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, the task and finish group's already it's to reconvene, isn't it?
Reconvene, yes, the current task and finish group.
Okay. If members are happy to take them together, we will do the roll call.
Okay, thank you, members. Please indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Carol Beard.
She's left.
She's left. Councillor Philip Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Samantha Cotton.
For.
Councillor Keith Eales.
For.
Councillor Pat Hebron.
Abstain.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor Ian Jenkins.
Obliged.
Councillor Don Milne. I think he's left.
Don's actually left.
Okay, no. Thank you. Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Thank you, members. That's 10 in favour and 1 abstention.
Excellent. So that has been approved. So I will take you to the recommendation. which is on page 160, and it's that members note the report. We need a proposer and seconder. The report's noted that Councillor Geoffrey Corrie and Sam Cotton, Councillor Sam Cotton to second. Members are happy. Could you please show by raising your hands? Yep.
Thank you,
Members are happy with that. Thank you very much, members. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. I would like to thank Dawn Hughes and Jane Jones, our Scrutiny Committee Services Officers, and also Jodie Davis, Ellen Edwards, Andrew Wilkinson, Matthew Frankham, Jane Richardson, Peter Brown, our translation service, and anybody else that I think I probably haven't missed off. We're a little bit early finishing tonight, but Councillor Keith Eales did request that. So thank you, everybody. Take care, keep safe, and don't let Stone Dudley ruin your evening.